Okay. Now let's discuss about the next property, electron affinity. These are all the periodic properties. We got so far finished atomic and ionic radius. Valency, of course, the first one. Second, atomic and ionic radius. The third, ionization energy or ionization potential. Now the next one is electron affinity. Okay. Now whenever we talk about electron affinity, we consider those elements which gain electrons. See, when we discussed about ionization energy, where it is the energy required to remove the most loosely bound electron, you know that the elements which have the tendency to lose electrons only will lose the electrons, and they are of course metals. So that's why when we discussed about ionization energy, we dealt with metals. We have taken sodium, magnesium, etc. because we can remove electrons from metals. It is difficult to remove electrons from non-metals because non-metals have the tendency to gain electrons and acquire negative charges. So therefore, when we talk about electron affinity, now we will take non-metals as examples. Like for example, fluorine. You can take oxygen, you can take nitrogen, etc. Okay? You can take chlorine. Now, if these elements can gain electrons because, again related to configuration, if you look at their valence shells, for example, fluorine, it is 2, 7. They have got 7 electrons. Oxygen 2, 6. Nitrogen 2, 5. It is 2, 8, 7. Because chlorine belongs to fluorine family. Therefore, number of valence electrons will remain same. Okay? Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, etc. Bromine is 2, 8, 18, 7. Okay? So 10 plus 18. Okay. So bromine is 35. Let's not take this example. But last electrons will remain same. So we can write in configuration later on. Iodine. It is 35 atomic number. It is 70. Okay. Fluorine is 9. 35. It is 53. Atomic number is 53. Iodine. It is also having 7 electrons in its valence shell. Okay. All of them have 7 electrons in their valence shells. They are being halogens. Anyway, so they all can remove only 1 electron because their valences are 1. Sorry, in all those elements you can add 1 electron. See, 7 plus 1 electron, it will become 8, which is the configuration of, 2 plus 8, 10. Already 2 electrons are there, 2, 7. If it takes 1 more electron, it will become 2, 8. It will become 2, 8. And 2, 8 is the configuration of neon. It is stable. Therefore, it tries to gain 1 electron. Oxygen 2, 6. It tries to gain 2 electrons. And it becomes 2, 8 again. 2, 6 become 2, 8. Again, it will get the configuration of neon. So, what happened to their ions? When it gains 1 electron, it becomes F minus. It is gaining 2 electrons, so it becomes O2 minus. Nitrogen gains 3 electrons, so it becomes N3 minus. Like this. So you know why nitrogen becomes 3 minus? Because its valency is 3. After gaining 3 electrons, valence shell we have only, it has only 5. 5 plus 3, 8. So it also becomes 2, 8. In order to become 2, 8, oxygen gain 2 electrons. 2, 6 become 2, 8 by gaining 2 electrons. That's why oxygen gain 2 electrons. Fluorine takes up only 1 electron and it becomes 2, 8 because already 2, 7 is there, it will become 2, 8. So basically let me tell you, when we deal with electron affinity, we take non-metals because they have the tendency to gain electrons. Okay? How many electrons each element gain, that we can understand from its configuration and its valency, whether it can gain 1 electron or 2 electrons or 3 electrons. Okay? So if we talk about chlorine, we'll also take 1 electron because its valence shell is having 7 electrons. If we talk about bromine, also we'll take 1 electron because it has already got 7 electrons in its valence shell, so it needs only 1. So on the basis of valency and configuration, we can understand how many electrons they can gain. But the overall we understood that all these elements being non-metals can gain electrons. Now remember, whenever an element accepts an electron, to become stable, what is happening? That means what? If you compare with fluorine, what you are trying to tell is, if you add an electron or if it accepts an electron, what it is becoming? It is becoming F minus. This is 2,7 plus 1 electron is 2,8, and it is getting the configuration of neon. So I am saying it is stable. So if it is stable, in comparison to F minus, this is less stable. So less stable becomes more stable. When a species becomes more stable, its energy decreases. Now where does the extra energy goes? It has to be released. When an unstable species becomes a stable species, energy is released. Okay? Even same thing happens in chemical reactions also. When a chemical reaction takes place between A and B, if you get more stable compounds in comparison to A and B, when products C and D are formed, energy is released. So that's why we call them as exothermic reaction. Anyway, that's a different thing. So remember that when a species is acquiring stability in comparison to the previous condition, that means it is lowering its energy. When it is lowering its energy, that means it is releasing the energy into the surroundings. Therefore, electron affinity is the energy released. When an extra electron is being added. When we don't take and add, they accept it. But we write the statement like this. So I am writing this statement because you can easily understand now. I explained this example so you can easily understand. Once again, pay attention to this. The condition remains same. Fluorine, whenever we talk about the addition of electron or removal of electron, they must be in gaseous atoms, not even molecular form. See, fluorine exists in molecular form, F2. If you want to add an electron to F2, which is difficult, may not be possible, because fluorine molecule is quite stable. That means there is a bond between two fluorine atoms, which you need to break. When you break this, it will become 2F. Now this fluorine is in atomic form. It is a gaseous atom now. This is a gaseous atom. Okay. So I have taken F. I didn't take F2. You must have observed. So now you can easily frame the definition. Obviously, it is release of energy, because when you are adding an electron, energy released as you are getting more stable species. And therefore we can define electron affinity as it is the energy released. So I can write here plus energy. Okay, plus energy. Fluorine plus electron gives F minus plus energy, and this energy released is nothing but electron affinity. So I am defining it. Energy released, if you want I will write it here. Energy released when an extra electron, because already it has 2,7 and it's a neutral atom, but we are adding an extra electron. Energy released when an extra electron is added to, again, a neutral gaseous atom. Why gaseous atom? Otherwise, even if it is in molecular form, you cannot add electron because they are quite stable. If it is in liquid or any solid form, it is not possible at all to add or remove electrons. Therefore, this condition of neutral gaseous atom must be mentioned, just like you have mentioned in ionization energy also. There we have written energy required to remove the most loosely bound electron from a neutral gaseous atom. Here, the energy released, it seems like just opposite. Energy released, their energy required. If you want to remove the electron, energy is certainly required because you have to break the force of attraction between the nucleus and electron, which is already existing. Okay, so therefore you need to supply the energy or energy required to remove the electron. That is ionization energy. Here it is electron affinity is the energy released when an extra electron is being added to a neutral gaseous atom. Okay, now this energy released is nothing but first electron affinity. Okay, first electron affinity. Okay, this is nothing but first electron affinity, which is the energy released when first electron is being added. Of course, in fluorine we cannot add any more electron because F minus is getting the configuration of neon. So you have to find out the elements which can take more than one electron. Example, which can accept more than one electron, which can gain more than one electron. Those nonmetals whose valency is 2 or 3. So which nonmetals valency is 2? Oxygen, sulfur, selenium, etc. 16th group elements. I will take an example of oxygen. Oxygen valency is 2 because its configuration is 2, 6. Atomic number is 8. So it can take 2 electrons. So how to show this electron affinity now? Oxygen takes an electron first and becomes O minus. Plus energy is released. This is nothing but EA. Electron affinity or first electron affinity. We don't need to mention first when I write electron affinity. I don't need to write first when I am talking about ionization energy. Ionization energy itself means first ionization energy. Electron affinity itself means first electron affinity. If at all you are talking about second electron affinity, then only I will write second. Okay. So once I get O minus, now this O minus will accept one more electron. And you know why? Because it must become O2 minus so that 2, 6 configuration becomes 2, 8, which is the configuration of neon, which is quite stable. So that's the reason why its valency is 2. It has a tendency to gain 2 electrons, 1 plus 1, 2 electrons, and become a stable configuration species O2 minus. So this is known as oxide ion. This is known as fluoride ion. Oxide, fluoride, nitride, sulfide. The suffix IDE is used in IDE, ATE, okay, etc. are used. Suffixes are used in case of anions. When a species acquires negative charge, all those species which have negative charges were given a specific suffix which you must learn. like fluorine, fluoride, chlorine, chloride, bromine, bromide, oxygen, oxide, sulfur, sulfide. Okay, like this. Nitrogen, nitride, nitride, like that. ID is added in this. Okay. So it depends on the nature of the ion, of course. Like for example, acetate, there we use AT, something like that. Anyway, so you got the second electron also being added. Second electron also being added. Now this is nothing but second electron affinity. This is first electron affinity. We need not to mention first there. This is second electron affinity. See, in books they usually mention that practically it is not possible to possible that energy is released when you are adding second electron, because it is very difficult to add second electron if you compare with adding an electron in a neutral atom. Children, I explained you the ionic radius with examples because of this reason only. Now, just like previous case which we have discussed about Na plus, Mg plus, etc. Here also we need to understand which is bigger out of these two. The size of O is bigger or O minus is bigger. In case of cations we have seen Na is bigger than Na plus. 11 electrons, 10 electrons. In case of anion and neutral atom is smaller than anion. Here, neutral atom is bigger than cation because the number is decreasing when it becomes cation. Here the number is increasing when it becomes anion. 8 electrons, 9 electrons. Now it is smaller than O2 minus. It is smaller than O2 minus. Now look at this picture. What we have done in the first step, we have converted O to O minus. Energy released is electron affinity. So what happened from O to O minus? O to O minus, the size of the species is increased. Size increased. Now, why it is difficult to add electron? I mean, we need to really compare first electron affinity or simply electron affinity and second electron affinity. Which is more? Can you guess? I mean, you'll have to write greater than or less than in this box. First ionization energy is greater than second ionization energy, or first ionization energy is less than second ionization energy. That means the energy which is released is more in case of first ionization energy or more in case of second ionization energy. That means energy released is more when you are adding an electron to a neutral atom or when you are adding to a bigger sized anion. Already it has become anion. O minus is an anion. After accepting an electron, it has become an anion which is bigger in size. Now children, after adding an electron, when the size of the atom is already becoming bigger, and the number of electrons are being added already, already it has become 2,6 has become 2,7. See, this is the configuration 2,6. Now it is 2,7. Okay. Now when it becomes 2,7, that means number of electrons are increased by 1. So the size will increase and the newly added electron is being added into the same subshell, which is very, very important. 2,7. 2,6, 2,7. That means 6 electrons were there in second shell. Now the same second shell, 7 electrons are there. Same second shell. That means the newly added electron is entered into the same second shell. Same shell. Now what happens when the electrons are being added into the same shell? They experience repulsions. They experience repulsions. They are known as inter-electronic repulsions. Two things happened. One is size increased. Now the second electron which you are going to add will be far from the nucleus, number one. Another thing is that already existing electrons are experiencing inter-electronic repulsion, so it is difficult to add second electron to already becoming anion. That means when a neutral atom already becomes an anion or mononegative ion, now adding a second electron would be obviously difficult because of two reasons I said. Number one, the size is increasing. Number two, the electrons which are already present, 7 electrons in the same shell, are experiencing inter-electronic repulsions which will not permit or which have less tendency to accept the next electron which is going to come into the same subshell. Therefore, the energy released when second electron is added to an anion, mononegative anion, will be less. Therefore, second electron affinity is less than first electron affinity. So, first electron affinity is greater than second electron affinity because it is difficult to add second electron because already the size is increasing, and then it is and the nucleus cannot attract the newly added electron so strongly as it does with first electron. So the energy released is less. So the people say that practically energy is not released, but comparatively we can give this statement anyway. So first electron affinity is greater than second electron affinity, and second electron affinity will be greater than third electron affinity. Just like first ionization energy, you compared with first ionization energy with second ionization energy. First ionization energy and second ionization energy. What did we study? Once an electron is removed, and already it is becoming positively charged species, the size decreases, and it is difficult to remove the electron from such smaller one. So therefore, it is difficult to remove the second electron from the already formed positively charged ion. Like that is what we have discussed. Sodium becomes sodium plus. Magnesium becomes magnesium plus. And magnesium plus to magnesium 2 plus is very difficult. Magnesium plus to magnesium 2 plus, because size is already decreased. So second ionization energy is greater. Second ionization energy is greater than first ionization energy. Here, first electron affinity is greater than second electron affinity. So almost, if you see, overall, if you try to understand, ionization energy refers to metals, electron affinity refers to non-metals. Ionization energy is the energy required to remove the most loosely bound electron. Electron affinity is the energy released when an extra electron is added. There, first ionization energy is less than second ionization energy. Here, first ionization electron affinity is greater than second electron affinity. So this is how almost when you try to understand with different examples, we can easily remember what happens in which case. Okay, so this is all about electron affinity. See, always there are exceptions, children. Earlier I explained when I discussed with the periodic trends, down the group ionization energy gradually decreases, and left to right there were exceptions. From beryllium to boron increased, it has to increase. Then from boron to lithium to beryllium increased. Then beryllium to boron, instead of increasing, it is decreased. So I said reason stable configuration. Similarly, one thing I must tell you, that both ionization energy and electron affinity, usually they express in kilojoules per mole. Like for example, ionization energy of hydrogen is 1312 kilojoule per mole. 1312 kilojoule per mole. So in bigger atoms, like say for example iron, that is somewhere 380 kilojoule per mole. 380. So there is a huge difference. Hydrogen being smaller one, the electron is very close to the nucleus, it is very difficult to remove the electron. Therefore, energy required is more, 1312 kilojoule per mole. Okay, so electron affinities are also measured in the same way, either kilojoule per mole or kilocalories per mole. Okay, so kilojoules are kilocalories. So you know that how to convert calories into joules and so on. Fine. So both are measured in terms of kilojoules or kilocalories per mole. Now I'll explain quickly the periodic trends of electron affinity. So down the group and left to right we have to check. Okay, down the group and left to right. Electron affinities. Okay, so I'll take some examples like fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. Let us deal with this electron affinity down the group in 17th group elements. 17th group elements we are discussing fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, etc. Okay. So what will happen? Guess. You are adding electron to all of them. Their valence is 1. They gain 1 electron. They all become mononegative ions like this. They all become mononegative ions. Their valence is 1 because configuration is ns2 np7. They need only 1 electron to become octet state, to acquire octet configuration. So therefore, they gain only 1 electron, F plus electron, F minus, Cl plus electron, Cl minus, Br plus electron, Br minus, I plus electron, I minus. But the trend we need to understand. Down the group, in all the cases, energy is released. Plus E, plus E, plus E, plus E. And this energy is released is nothing but electron affinity. Energy released when an extra electron is added to a neutral atom or a species. So this energy released, how does it vary down the group? That is what we need to understand. This is what is known as periodic trend. So down the group what will happen and left to right what will happen. So can you guess what will happen to the energy released when the size is increasing? What is happening from these elements down the group? We know that down the group, first of all, what happens? Size increases. When the size is increasing and you are adding one electron into these elements. So guess what will happen to the energy released? Will increase or decrease? Electron affinities will gradually decreases down the group. Okay, with increase in atomic radius. So electron affinity is, what is the relationship? When the size is increasing, electron affinities are decreasing. Again, inverse relation with atomic radius. That means smaller the atomic radius, greater is the energy released. This is a trend. If exceptions are there, I will explain that separately. So down the group, electron affinities gradually decreases. First of all, try to understand why. Why the electron affinity or the energy release decreases down the group? It is quite simple. So what is happening is that size is increasing. Here you have got 2 shells. Here you have got 3 shells. Here you have got 4 shells. Here you have got 5 shells. Okay. Now where are you adding electron? You are adding electron 1 electron in all the other elements. You can do that. But in case of fluorine, you are adding electron in second shell. 2, 7. 2, 8, 7 like this. 2, 8, 7. Here 2, 7. So in case of fluorine, you are adding electron in second shell. But in case of chlorine, you are adding electron in third shell. In case of bromine, you are adding electron in fourth shell. In case of iodine, you are adding electron in fifth shell. So, the newly added electron is being added far from the nucleus when you are moving down the group. When you are adding far from the nucleus, the newly added electron will be added, but the force of attraction will be less. Therefore, the energy released will be less. More the force of attraction, more the stable, more is the energy released. Therefore, electron affinities gradually decreases down the group. But here one exception is there, children. In case of fluorine, electron affinity, actually it is decreasing, no? Decreasing means fluorine must be having the highest electron affinity, but there is an exception. Fluorine electron affinity of fluorine is less than fluorine. But chlorine is greater than bromine, bromine is greater than iodine. Here there is no exception. Exception is there with first pair only. From fluorine to chlorine only. Thereafter decreases and decreases. So why this case? I mean, it is generally used in competitive exams also, or reasoning questions they are asked usually. To give reason why electron affinity of fluorine is less than chlorine. So let's try to understand quickly. Fluorine is 27 and chlorine is 287. Okay. So you are trying to add electron. In fluorine in the second shell. Okay. And you are trying to add electron in the chlorine in third shell. Okay. Now look at this fluorine. Fluorine is smaller in this particular group. Fluorine is the smallest atom, having only two shells. Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, acetylene. Fluorine is the smallest atom. Just like you imagine you have a small house, having only one bedroom, hall, kitchen. Okay, this makes you understand this very easily. Suppose some guest wanted to visit your house and stay there for 2 to 3 days. Okay, so how difficult you are supposed to, you wish to accommodate them. Already single bedroom, hall, kitchen. Then 4 or 5 guests are visiting your house and wanted to stay for 2 to 3 days. It's difficult to adjust them. Now after 2 days, maybe one more phone call that your very close friends, one more family wants to visit. So you just imagine what will happen. Already there is no space. You are struggling for adjusting the first visitors only. First family friends, whoever may be. Now one more team of family friends are interested to come. It's very, very difficult to accommodate. You apply this concept here. Since the size of the fluorine is already very small, this is the second shell. The size is small, and in the second shell there are 7 electrons. In the second shell there are 7 electrons. And of course, in chlorine, 7 electrons are there, but in third shell. Third shell is comparatively bigger shell. That means the house of the third shell of chlorine is bigger. House of the second shell of fluorine is smaller. That way you can understand. So, already these 7 electrons are fighting with each other. Because the house is smaller, the shell is smaller. Second shell. See, for fluorine, second is the valence shell. For chlorine, third is the valence shell. Now, when the number increases, the size increases, for each and every shell. So, here, this shell, this house is bigger, this house is smaller. So, number of electrons are very, very high. 7 electrons are already present in a small house, and they are already, experiencing repulsions because all of them have negative charge. 7 electrons in the same shell are already accommodated by fluorine, and which are feeling some repulsive forces which are known as inter-electronic repulsions. They are already experiencing some inter-electronic repulsions. In such a situation, you are trying to add one more electron and to make F minus. It will become F minus because it needs an electron to become inert gas configuration, but the energy released will be comparatively less. Why? Simple answer, it is because of small sized second shell and greater inter-electronic repulsions. You may ask, sir, here also there are 7 electrons in the valence shell. Don't they repel? Yes, they will repel, but their repulsions will be less because the house is bigger, the space is bigger. They will also experience inter-electronic repulsions, but the inter-electronic repulsions experienced in third shell by 7 electrons is less. Therefore, they will accept the newly added electron comparatively in an easy manner. Therefore, the energy released will be more. So this is an exception, of course, why fluorine has less electron affinity than chlorine. Otherwise, electron affinities will gradually decrease, and the relation with atomic radius is inverse relation. Smaller the size, greater the electron affinity. Bigger the size, smaller the electron affinity. Just like ionization energy. Ionization energy is also the same thing. Smaller the size, greater the ionization energy, when it is very difficult to remove from smaller atom. So this is about the trend in a particular group. Now what will happen to the electron affinity from left to right in a period? Quickly, I'll take up a couple of examples here. So I'll start with the nitrogen, oxygen, then fluorine. Okay, we should not take neon, because neon you cannot add any electron. So nitrogen you can add electron, oxygen you can add electron, fluorine you can add electron. So from left to right, we can also write other elements like before nitrogen. What we have is this is sixth is carbon. Then you have boron, something like this. Okay? From boron I have written because these are non-metals are either comparatively, it's a non-metal, more of non-metal. So these non-metals I have taken boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxide, fluorine. I will not take those metals, beryllium, magnesium, because you cannot add electrons there, you remove electrons. So when you compare the electron affinities from left to right in a period, what is happening? You see atomic radius, what is happening to the atomic radius? We can answer the trends of ionization energy and electron affinity if you know the atomic radii trend. If you know the atomic radii trend, it is inversely proportional. So down the group, electron affinity decreases. So left to right increases. Blindly you can write. Because already I told you that electron affinity is inversely proportional to atomic radius. And we know that left to right atomic radius, what will happen? Atomic radius decreases. Atomic radius decreases. If atomic radius decreases, electron affinity increases. Got it? If atomic radius decreases, electron affinity increases. And you can understand better why. When the size is decreasing, when the atomic radius is decreasing, the newly added electron can be easily attracted by the nucleus because it is going closer to the nucleus. This is bigger atom, this is smaller atom. This is bigger atom, this is smaller atom. And when it is smaller atom, comparatively you can easily add the electron if you compare with the bigger atom. So the nucleus will be closer to the nucleus when the atom is smaller. The newly added electron will be closer to the nucleus when you are adding, if the atom is smaller. So it will attract more. When the force of attraction is more, the energy released will be more. That is the reason why electron affinity increases gradually from left to right in a period. Electron affinity increases from left to right in a period, decreases down the group, and inverse of atomic radius. If you understand atomic radius, children, that left to right atomic radius decreases, down the group atomic radius increases, then you don't need to remember ionization energy and electron affinity. Just inverse it. Left to right atomic radius is increasing, so ionization energy decreases. Atomic radius is decreasing left to right. Atomic radius is decreasing left to right in a period, so ionization energy will increase, electron affinity also will increase. Come this side. Down the group atomic radius is increasing. Down the group atomic radius is increasing. Atomic radius is inverse of ionization energy and electron affinity. So both ionization energy and electron affinity will decrease down the group. Because size is increasing, so both will decrease down the group. So if you understand this relation, so here ionization energy is also having same relation, inverse relation with atomic radius. Actually, this is how we remember things. We apply concepts. Explanations are not required. Basically when you are solving questions, these things we keep in mind and go faster. Speed with perfection we talk about. Speed with perfection needs such important concepts to be kept in your mind. Okay. So this is all about electron affinity. Then we have one more, that is electronegativity. So children, one thing I will tell you. So far we discussed about electron affinity and ionization energy. And whenever we talked about ionization energy and electron affinity, we referred individual atoms. Individual sodium, we removed an electron, that too it must be in a gaseous form, gaseous atomic form. Okay. Otherwise, if you take in solid state, there will have very strong force of attractions between the metal atoms only. Okay. Due to metallic bond, we call it as. Due to metallic bond, there is a force of attraction between atoms. Okay. Similarly, even if you consider any molecule like fluorine molecule, chlorine molecule, already there are force of attractions between the atoms. So it is difficult to either remove electron from the metallic form of the atoms or add electrons in stable form of gaseous molecules. They must always be atomic form. Gaseous atomic form. That is what the condition was in both the definitions you must have seen. I repeat again, ionization energy is the energy required to remove the most loosely bound electron from a neutral gaseous atom. Same way, electron affinity is the energy released when an extra electron is being added to a neutral gaseous atom. That condition was there. Now, pay attention here. Now we talk about when two atoms form a bond. When two similar or especially the dissimilar atoms like A and B. When A combines with B, forms a bond between A and B, and the newly formed compound name is AB. Okay? Like for example, carbon plus oxygen gives carbon monoxide. Carbon plus oxygen is carbon monoxide. Hydrogen plus chlorine, it forms HCl. There is a bond formed between hydrogen and chlorine. Hydrogen plus bromine gives HBr, like that. Carbon plus oxygen, carbon monoxide. Okay, nitrogen plus oxygen, nitric oxide, NO, like that. We can have molecules. Now, what would happen if this compound is formed when there is a compound formed between hydrogen and chlorine? This is known as HCl, hydrogen chloride. This is hydrogen bromide if they are in gaseous form. Okay. Now there is another property known as electronegativity. Electronegativity is denoted by E dot N, electronegativity. This is also a very, very important concept which is used which is applied in senior classes as well. So now we talk about this electronegativity refers to a property which is in combined form we can say. When elements combine, they form compounds. So in compounds, what kind of forces they experience, or who is having more tendency to attract the pair of electrons towards themselves when they are in combined form. Earlier in ionization energy and electron affinity, we talked about individual atoms. Okay, whether you are adding electron or removing electron. Now we are talking about compounds. Okay, when the elements are in compound form, when the elements are in combined form. So what kind of forces they exist between them? Whether the forces are same or different. I mean, when H is forming a bond with chlorine, hydrogen contributes one electron and chlorine contributes another one electron. Okay, so chlorine of course is having total 7 electrons in its valence shell, you know that. Total chlorine 17, 287. It has got 7 electrons in its valence shell, but it contributes only one electron because it needs only one. So like this, hydrogen is contributing only one electron, the dot kind of electron I am showing just to show the difference, and the star like electron is of chlorine electron. Okay, these are all the electrons of chlorine, which I have shown the valence shell electrons only, 7 electrons. So now when these two elements share with their single electrons, this kind of sharing is known as mutual sharing, because this electron belongs to chlorine also, this electron belongs to hydrogen also. Now this pair of electron is being mutually shared by both of them. Therefore, since they are mutually cooperating, this bond is known as covalent bond. Covalent. Co is referring to coordination between the two atoms. They are mutually sharing the pair of electron. Now see, if this electron belongs to hydrogen, already it is having 1 plus 1, 2 electrons is the configuration of neon, the configuration of helium. So the hydrogen is happy. Then chlorine is having 7 electrons, 7 plus 1 when it is sharing with the electron of hydrogen. So total it gets 8 electrons in its valence shell, happy. So it gets the configuration of argon. Already 17 electrons it is having. It is sharing one more electron of hydrogen. So total 18 is the configuration of argon, which is a inert gas. So both are happy. Now in such condition, what the point here is, when there is a bond formed between hydrogen and the chlorine, whether these elements have similar power of attracting this pair of electron which is being shared, mutually shared. That is the question mark here. Whether hydrogen and chlorine are able to attract this pair of electron which is being mutually shared towards themselves, and that the power of attracting the shared pair of electrons is nothing but electronegativity. So electronegativity is the tendency of an atom to attract the shared pair of electrons, the mutually shared pair of electrons. You don't need to write mutually shared. So the definition for electronegativity is very, very simple. Unlike ionization energy and electronegativity. So I am writing the definition here. Electronegativity is the tendency of an atom. Tendency of an atom to attract the shared pair of electrons. Shared pair of electrons towards itself. That means the tendency of that particular atom to attract this pair of electrons towards itself. In terms of chlorine, towards chlorine; in terms of hydrogen, towards hydrogen. And that tendency is known as electronegativity. See, in order to calculate or determine the value of electronegativity, different formulae were introduced by different scientists. One Millikan's there is a scientist named Millikan. Actually, we will study this in atomic structure also. Millikan's oil drop experiments. He did a very good experiment. He is the first one to determine the charge of electron as 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulombs of negative charge. So Millikan's oil drop experiment, which is very famous. Anyway, what Millikan says that electronegativity must be equal to the average of electron affinity and ionization energy. If you know the electron affinity values and ionization energy values, you just take the average, you will get the tendency of an atom to attract the pair of electron towards itself. So perhaps this is one of the way by which we can do it. So this is Millikan's formula. So Millikan's method of determining electronegativity. But mostly they didn't accept it because they were not getting correct results. Because once you apply this concept, maybe you calculate the values and trying to apply in different situations. If you don't get correct results and the results are against the actual behavior of compounds, then it's very difficult and everything goes in trouble. So they didn't accept. Then another formula came into existence. That is, if you want to calculate so for example, you have A and B, okay? Electronegativity of A and B. Electronegativity difference, that is what we are talking about, no? What we are talking about is if you have A and B formed, compound A and B formed, okay? So you can calculate the electronegativity or the difference of capacity of attracting this pair of electrons electrons towards itself by using this formula 2.08 and square root of delta. And if this value 2.08, if you are taking 10 kilojoule per mole. Okay, actually we don't have to deal with this formula, children, okay? Using this formula, this is of course electronegativity difference or between A and B. This is what we are talking about. This is A and this is B. So electronegativity difference between A and B, that's what we are talking about, the tendency of attracting pair of electrons between A and B. That's what we need to calculate. It is done by using this formula where this delta refers to the difference between the bond energies of these elements, bond energy. Now I'll tell you what is bond energy is. Actually some of the topics children are connected, were not given. You don't need to know all these details to understand the trend. Electronegativity trend can be easily understood. down the group decreases, left to right increases. That way you can write the trend. But then how they are being calculated, some values are given in your book also, that fluorine electronegativity is 4. I'll tell you the scale also. This is Millikan method and this is Pauling's method. You must note down this first. Pauling's method. And this is also sometimes called Pauling's scale. We call it as Pauling's scale or Pauling's method. So in Pauling's method, he has given this mathematical relationship. If you are expressing it in kilocalories, this value changes. Something like 1.017 something, whatever it may be. So if it is in kilojoules, this is the relation. Now I am briefly trying to explain you. You are not going to the details of all these things, but at least you must know how these values are coming: fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine. So they gave you electronegativity of fluorine is 4.0. This is 3.5. This is somewhere to 3. This is 2.5. This is 2 like this. These values were given in your book also. So how come these values are being calculated? Okay. Now hydrogen, they said 2.1. Hydrogen electronegativity is 2.1. Okay. So how these values are being calculated by Pauling? He is also a famous scientist. Pauling's scale. On Pauling's scale, this is what we say. On Pauling's scale, the electronegativity of fluorine is 4. I mean, he has calculated the electronegativity of hydrogen first. He has calculated the electronegativity of hydrogen first as 2.1, which is taken as standard, and then calculated the other ones, comparative electronegativities. He has calculated on his scale, fluorine is the element with highest value of electronegativity, that is 4. Now if you come this side, oxygen, nitrogen, etc., again then decreases. It is somewhere again close to 3.5, then 3, and so on. It's like values you can check from the data. So this way also it is increasing, this way it is increasing, and this way it is decreasing. So the trend is very clear. Electronegativity trend is very clear. Down the group, the values are decreasing. Left to right, the values are increasing. Electronegativity gradually decreases down the group, and electronegativity gradually increases from left to right in a period. That means again electronegativity, and what is the relationship between atomic radius? Directly proportional or indirectly inversely proportional. Atomic radius is increasing, electronegativities are decreasing. So again atomic radius. Now see children, so easy to understand. All the three, ionization energy, electron affinity, and electronegativity, will have the same trend of decreasing down the group, which is against increase in atomic radius. That means all the three are inversely related to atomic radius. Ionization energy inversely related to atomic radius, electron affinity inversely related to atomic radius, electronegativity is also inversely related to atomic radius. Very easy to understand. Left to right size decreases, so electronegativity increases. Ionization energy increases. Electron affinity increases. Why increases? Of course, even if you don't understand the reason, because I don't think they are going to ask the reasons in your syllabus. If they ask, it is good. So down the group, atomic radius increases, electronegativity decreases, ionization energy decreases, electron affinity decreases. All the three decreases. Now where the problem is to understand and to forget. If you understand one atomic radius, Rest of the free properties have inverse relation. So there is no question of forgetting or getting confused with at least the trends, which you can easily explain them. Explain the trend of atomic radius, explain the trend of ionization energy, explain the trend of electron affinity, explain the trend of electron negativity down the group and left to right in a period. If the question is asked for 2 marks, you can easily explain them. And if the reasons are asked, I have explained those reasons also. And finally, I am coming to this formula again. Though it is not required, electronegativity is this much only. The tendency of an atom to attract the shared pair of electrons towards itself. Okay. So, how strongly the pair of electron which is being mutually shared is attracted towards them is nothing but electronegativity. So, Millikan's formula doesn't hold good so perfectly, so they have not accepted this Millikan's formula. So I am removing this Millikan's formula. So afterwards, a scientist named Pauling introduced a method, obviously it is known as Pauling's method. He has calculated the electronegativity difference between the two atoms. Simply you can call it as A and B by using this formula 2.08 square root of delta. Actually, for calculating delta, this is the difference. Delta is the difference between the bond energies, the measured bond energies minus the expected bond energies. He has taken the difference between measured bond energies of A and B and the expected bond energy between A and B. And then you will ask me, obviously, sir, what is this bond energy is all about? See, very simple. Bond energy is the energy released when 1 mole of bonds are formed. That means when a bond is formed between H and Cl, when a bond is formed, how the bond is formed? By sharing of electron. Hydrogen is having an electron and chlorine is having an electron free. Free means it can contribute 1 electron, chlorine can contribute 1 electron, and hydrogen can contribute 1 electron. So these are individual atoms. Now when individual atoms are ready to react or combine, yes, there will be a formation of a bond by the mutual sharing of these electrons. This way I will show. We will have to show like this. Then only we call it as mutual sharing. That means this pair of electron, this and this pair of electron belong to hydrogen, and this pair of electron also belongs to chlorine. So there is a force of attraction between them when this bond is formed. Actually, bond is nothing but force of attraction. So whenever mutual sharing takes place, we can say that a bond is formed. Sharing is nothing but bonding. And bond means force of attraction. Now these are individual atoms which are comparatively unstable. When the bond is formed, they become more stable. Okay, they are quite stable. When the HCl is formed, HCl is quite stable compound formed. Now only the thing we need to understand is that when hydrogen-hydrogen bond is formed, some energy is released. That is what is called the bond energy between hydrogen and hydrogen. The energy which is, whenever this kind of bond is formed, some energy is released. Certainly some energy is released. And this energy released when the bond is formed, not one single bond. Technically, by definition if you go, correct definition if you go, energy released in kilojoules per mole or kilocalories per mole, whatever you can use. This is what the unit which we use for bond energy also. So the energy released when 1 mole of such bonds are formed is nothing but bond energy. That means when the bond is formed, energy is released. That is nothing but bond energy. Okay. Now what he did, he actually took the difference between, this is the difference actually, square root of the difference between the bond energies practically observed of hydrogen and chlorine. expected. The data which he is already having. By taking the difference, he has calculated the electronegativity difference between the two atoms A and B, which whatever the atoms may be. So that way, when he calculated the standard value for hydrogen is coming somewhere 2.1 on his scale of electronegativity, and rest he could easily calculate as 4, 3.5, 3 and so on. So this is how electronegativity has been calculated by Pauling using his method, Pauling's method, taking the bond energies, using bond energies. Okay, so that's all about electronegativity. And trend I already explained, it is inversely proportional to atomic radius. So down the group decreases, left to right increases electronegativities. Trends are very simple. I gave a clear idea about the relationship between these three: electron affinity, ionization energy and electronegativity. All the three are having inverse relation with atomic radius. All the three have inverse relation with atomic radius. So you can easily explain the trend. There is no question of getting any confusion with trend at least. So finally, a small topic is left, children: metallic and non-metallic properties. See, quickly, you know all the metals like lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium of the first group, beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium and barium, radium. Okay. Now quickly I am going towards right: boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, chlorine, neon, and chlorine, bromine, iodine, acetylene. That's all. This much is enough to make you understand the metallic and non-metallic properties. The last one, metallic and non-metallic properties. This is the last one of your lesson: metallic and non-metallic properties. Okay. Now, so what is the definition of metals? Metals are electropositive in nature. They have the tendency to lose electrons. Where are those metals? The entire D block elements are metals, that you know. Entire F block elements are metals, you know. Okay. And entire S block elements are metals except hydrogen. Okay. Now, where are non-metals? In P block you have non-metals. In P block you have non-metals. Remember, very strong non-metals you will find right top corner except inert gases. See, now whenever I talk about, these are all non-metals: helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon. But they are inert. I mean, they are noble gases. Except xenon, we don't have reactions with other elements. This is radioactive, we can't carry out reactions. There are some reactions carried out by xenon, but rest of the elements, no chemistry is studied so far. So, ignoring that, if you want the strongest non-metal, you go to top right corner. So, this is one. Okay, the most non-metallic. Now, if you want to go for most metallic, you go to left bottom corner, left bottom. This is radioactive, leave it, cesium. So that's why cesium and fluorine are very famous elements, my dear children. Cesium, especially fluorine, is of course a unique element, which is like a king. I mean, there is no element till date who can oxidize fluorine. That means there is no element exist or a compound exist which can oxidize fluorine. That means there is no compound which can take electron from fluorine. I mean, during reaction. You carry out any reaction, you will not find any reaction where the electron is being taken out in that process. So, That's the reason why this is the fluorine is highly electronegative. Its value on Pauling scale is 4. Highly electronegative. The most electronegative atom is fluorine. On Pauling scale, its value is 4. So from 4 to 2.1, something like that decreases, and this way also decreases 4, 3.5, 3, and so on. This way also electronegativity decreases, this way also electronegativity decreases. That's why left to right increases and down the group decreases as far as electronegativity is concerned. Well, so the point I am making is that the non-metals, if you want to see strongest non-metals, you go to top right corner, and strongest metals, if you want to see, come down left bottom corner, like this, left bottom, strongest metal. So how is this? So as I said, metals are electropositive in nature. They have the tendency to lose electrons. Now out of these metals, for example, if we talk about first group elements, who will lose electrons easily? As the size increases, the valence electron will be, atomic size increases, the valence electron will be far from the nucleus, so you can easily remove that electron. And you can directly relate ionization energy now. Ionization energy gradually decreases. Now ionization energy is what? It is the energy required to remove the electron. Now, which is having the least ionization energy? Cesium. Which is having the least ionization energy? Cesium. Because the biggest atom, easily you can remove the electron. Okay. So what are metals? Metals are electropositive elements by losing electrons. Metals are electropositive elements, we call it as. Why? Because they have the tendency to lose electrons. Now you tell me, out of these metals, excluding hydrogen, which element can lose electrons easily? Cesium. So what are metals? Metals are the elements which can lose electrons easily. They have the tendency to lose electrons. Therefore, metallic nature gradually increases down the road. Metallic nature increases down the road. Metallic nature increases. I am talking about metallic nature. Don't mix up. Okay? Metallic nature gradually increases down the group. Metallic nature decreases left to right. Because when you are moving from left to right, see, first metals we have, except hydrogen, then transitional metals we have. When you go to P block, this is boron, carbon, nitrogen. So other elements are also I am writing: aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, etc. Okay, carbon, silicon, then germanium, arsenic, sulfur, selenium. Some few elements I am writing. Gallium. Okay, look here. When we are moving from left to right in a period, see, suppose if I am taking this period, for example, it's a typical period where you can check the variation in the metallic and non-metallic nature of elements. That's why I am preferring to take this period, third period. Okay, so I am preferring this period to explain metallic nature, variation in the metallic and non-metallic nature. It's a metal, again a metal, again a metal. Silicon is a semi-metal. It's a non-metal, strong non-metal. Of course, strongest is here. So, non-metallic nature is increasing and metallic nature is decreasing. So, left to right, what you have to write is metallic nature gradually decreases and non-metallic nature increases. Because metallic nature decreases to semi-metals, it already became semi-metal. Now after semi-metal you cannot have any more metallic property. So they will start becoming non-metals. And non-metals also there is a change. Non-metallic nature will keep on increasing. So what you have to write is metallic nature decreases down the group, non-metallic down the group, and metallic nature decreases left to right, and then non-metallic nature gradually increases. That's it. Now, if you talk about P block, where you have absolutely non-metals, the non-metallic nature gradually decreases. Non-metallic nature gradually decreases. Why? Because nonmetals are the ones which are electronegative in nature. They have the tendency to gain electrons. So electron affinity values gradually decreases. That means tendency of gaining electron decreases. Tendency of gaining electron is nothing but non-metallic nature, because non-metals gain electrons and become electronegative in nature. If electron affinities decreases, non-metallic nature decreases. If electron affinities decreases, non-metallic nature decreases. So strongly non-metallic is fluorine, and then gradually the size increases, electron affinity decreases, so non-metallic nature also decreases. So non-metallic nature decreases down the group. And if you want to talk about non-metallic nature from left to right, non-metallic nature increases, down the group decreases. Metallic nature down the group increases as the size is increasing, ionization energy is decreasing. Metallic nature left to right decreases, and gradually non-metallic nature increases like that when you go to the end point. Okay, so later on you will study the diagonal relationship also. Now if you are moving this way, for example, when you are moving from left to right down the group, this is left to the right means boron to carbon, carbon to nitrogen, then boron to aluminum, aluminum to gallium. This is down the group, this is left to right. What happens if you go diagonally? That means boron to silicon. This is a diagonal relationship. Actually here what happens? Left to right size decreases, down the group size increases, diagonally size remains same. I mean more or less same. So therefore, interestingly, boron and silicon will have some similarities in their properties. So interesting the chemistry is if you understand. Diagonal explain some, you will find explain diagonal relationship. Such kind of questions are asked even in intermediate. It's very easy. Left to right size decreases, down the group increases. So what will happen diagonally? It will almost remain same. Therefore, the properties are same when elements you consider diagonally. So why boron and silicon have some similar properties? Because of diagonal relationship, and the reason for diagonal relationship is having more or less similar size. That's all, children. So this is all about periodic properties of elements. So thank you, and we will start the next lesson, atomic structure, in the next class. Thank you.